It started off in the green. What? Nope. Can't read it. What's that set? Incredible. So, not a good time to stream? Is that what you're suggesting, YouTube? Welcome to Can Angels Fly Tarot. I'm Nancy. And today, we're here to talk about the houses of astrology. Right now, the health of the live stream is critical. And so, I always wait a few minutes to see if the health will correct itself. Once the health of the live stream has corrected itself, I will commence with the message for today. While we wait, if you're ever interested in ordering your own personal tarot reading with me, all you have to do is contact me at my email. My email is canangelsfly1@gmail.com. And if you're ever interested in offering financial support, all you have to do is locate the link below this video, which is my PayPal me account, and click on that link or follow that link and make your contribution there. Is there anything else? Oh yeah, please like, share, and if you haven't already, subscribe. Still waiting. Hi. While I'm up here playing around and okie doking, I'm about to refresh the page because I have a lot of things going on from my perspective. Yeah. Okay, that's better. The health has gone green. A couple of folks in the room. How you doing? Emily and Sissy, how are you? Welcome here. I think you know me. I already introduced myself, but just in case, I am Nancy. And today we're here to just talk about some basics that have to do with astrology. And we're going to talk about the houses. And so what you see around me are 12 houses. And these houses in astrology are numbered 1 through 12. As you can see, right above my finger is the very first house. And it moves clockwise. Which way would I go? All the way around to 12. Now, some of the houses have numbers. Other houses do not have numbers. The reason why some of the houses don't have numbers is because I kind of wanted to save some space with this app so it wouldn't malfunction. Just wanted to make sure of that. And so just think of it as, again, this house right here is number 1, and which way we move around clockwise, the numbers move forward in what do you call it, a sequence, or what's the word, not sequence, but oh, I almost had it, you know what I'm talking about. And so it moves around starting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 in that corner, 7, 8, 9. Where am I at? I'm getting lost. 9. This is 9. See, I'm getting lost. And then 10, 11, and then finally in this upper corner 12. And so right now I'm about to click to another screen. Hopefully it works. And I want to show you the different types of houses. So when I started this video with me in the middle of the screen, that is an example of this blue chart in the upper, I guess that would be left hand corner of your screen. And this is that's an example of a particular type of chart. If I'm not mistaken, this particular type of chart is referred to as I think a South Indian, or South Indian format. This is just the layout of the chart. But these other two charts that you see, the more peach colored chart as well as the wheel chart, are the same things. The peach color chart with all the triangles and square boxes is referred to as a North Indian format. And then finally, we have a basic, old traditional more tropical astrological wheel. But they all are the same. The houses are sectioned off, and the houses range from the first house, number 1, all the way to the 12th house. I'm attempting to come back. I'm back. I'm back. Okay. So I want to talk about each of the houses and what they actually mean. Now, I use the sample houses, but I sometimes think of them as a stage. I think of each house as a stage where a play is performed. However, in order to try to make this as simple as possible, because I do want it to be a short video, is we're going to deal with them as houses, which they're normally known as. And we're going to just use, start with house number 1. And house number 1, let's see, is the house of Aries. What do I mean? I mean, each house has its own zodiac sign. And as we move through the various houses, we're going to move through them quickly just to talk about them just a little bit in order to offer, I'm not even in the camera, offer some basic information, basic astrological information. Let me see. I'm trying to get there. I don't have, hold on. Let's see. Can I go this way? Oh, I guess I can't. Yeah, I gotta move over a little bit so I can be in the camera frame. I got so much stuff on the side of me, I can't even move over. Let's see. Yeah, I think I'm in the camera frame. I'm gonna have to move back for the other camera. Okay, let me try to relax. I be so anxious when I do videos, but I'm trying to train myself to relax. So we're just dealing with the very first house, and the very first house is occupied traditionally or on a basic level by the sign of Aries. And so we're going to talk about Aries house. What does it mean when we talk about a house? The house represents, again, it's something like a stage. And within this house, let's knock on the door and go inside. If we were to go inside of this house, the house of Aries, well, Aries is the person that is the superintendent over the house. Is the superintendent the super over the house? Supervises the house. And so this first house represents, first of all, an initiation. It's the first house, so it's the initiation, it's the onset, it's the initial urge. It is that which motivates you to get going, to get started, to exhaust your vital life force energy. On what? On what? It could be anything that inspires you, something that inspires you, something that drives you. What could it be? It could be love. It could be money. It could be the need to connect with another that inspires you, that gets you up and going. Basically, that's what the first house represents. As you see in the image, you see two faces, or a face or head of a man and a woman. Why are they there? Because when we talk about the first house, we're talking about the head and the face of the human body. Yes, even in astrology has ties to the various parts of our bodies, both internal and external. And in this case, when dealing with the first house, we're talking about the head and the face primarily. And then there are other things. I'm not going into extreme detail in the course of this live stream. The next thing that Aries has to, I know what I failed to mention. Aries is a fire sign. The fire element is what? Hot, aggressive, forceful, initiating. It can be impulsive if it is not mastered, this type of energy. The fire represents power, motivation. It also has to do with one's appearance, how you push yourself out into the world, how you present yourself to the world. It has to do with stamina, and strength, and about what animates you from the core. It also has to deal with assertiveness. As you can see, there's an image of a raging or roaring person. The first house also talks about what makes you angry or aggressive, or what motivates you to be assertive. Then there is another image of a figure running, sprinting. It is how this person, this figure, is exerting their energy. They are pushing forth in life. In this case, it looks like they're racing, you know. And so what am I saying? I'm saying the first house, when you go into the first house, you find out what enrages a person. You find out how they look. You find out how they use their vital life force energy, how they begin. The last thing I think that I want to talk about, at least right now, relative to the first house, is you can see in the image that I have on the screen, it says in the beginning. You know, in the beginning of what? In the beginning of your story. In the beginning, what inspires you, again, or drives you, or motivates you, or animates you to move forth in life. Now, I'm going to come back. I might have to move again. We're going to see. Is it going to do it? Yeah, it did it. Okay. I don't have to move over too much. Just a little bit. Again, my little squeaky chair. As mentioned, this video, this live stream is going to be very short. I just want to offer some basic information about astrology. And today we're talking about the houses. We just visited this first house of Aries. Now we're going to move on to house 2 and talk about the second house a little bit. The second house is occupied by Taurus. Remember, I was saying this, like the zodiac sign, in this case Taurus, is the superintendent to that house, the overseer to the house. Anyway, when we knock on the door and Taurus opens the door and we look in, what do we find? Well, we find possessions, physical, worldly possessions in the second house. We find the things that you feel like you need in your life to be physically secure. We find your physical worldly wants, needs, and desires. We find what has been met, and we also realize what is absent that you don't have when we enter the second house. Examples of things that we would find if we went into the second house are things like we might have different forms of jewelry, you know, actually different natural resources such as gemstones and metals and all those finer things, those things that really are what wealth are in this physical world. In the second house, we find cars, find automobiles, and they don't have to be fine. Everybody doesn't have a fine car. That's somewhat of, I guess, the complication in astrology is that what one has, again, is represented or presented in the second house. So you might have a jalopy, is what I'm trying to say, where another person, depending on how their life is made up, they may have something like a Bentley. That is shown. The quality, I'll say, of one's worldly possessions is shown in the second house. The absence of some of these worldly things are also shown in the second house. Let me try to clarify or continue to move forward. So, a person could have a jalopy or a Bentley in the second house. A person could wear real jewelry or fake jewelry in the second house. The second house also represents love, the things we love, or we're passionate about, the type of love that one wants to receive. For some people, the second house is filled with, I'll say, challenging type of love experience or sexual experiences. And for others, the second house is occupied with positive, uplifting love and great sex. Remember, the second house represents the things that you want. What is it that you want that will enrich your life? That's all in the second house. And then there are also things that we want or we desire that we never obtain. Those things too are shown or revealed in the second house. What else is it about the second house? I mentioned that I'll say maybe the proprietor of the second house is Taurus. And the second house is, or Taurus is an earth sign, meaning these things are not grounded, but fixed. It's fixed. You know what you want. You know what you need in order to be physically secure and stable in this physical world. I got to go back to the first house. I know what I forgot to mention. I did share that the proprietor of the first house is Aries. I also shared that Aries is a fire sign, and fire represents being initiated or starting something or being inspired to move forward. The first house is a mutable house, meaning it's ready to get up and go. Not mutable. Pisces mutable, fixed, cardinal. It's a cardinal house. It's ready to get up and go. It's ready to move. It's ready to, initiate and to exert one's vital force energy in some way. And the first house represents that some way, how one expresses their vital life force energy. Then the second house of Taurus, represents one's physical worldly wants, needs, and desires. That is to say, what one has or does not have. On to the third house. This is a very short video, just offering you some basics that have to do with astrology, and where our focus is on the houses. Before we move forward, I want to go back and show you the different types or different formats of how the houses are represented in astrology. The blue chart is South Indian format, where the peaches colors chart is a North Indian format. The circle or the traditional wheel or more tropical wheel format, I think I said that right. They're all the same thing, just designed differently. Let's see if I can come back. Just wanted to remind you. Now we're going to the third house. Now the third house proprietor is Gemini, the sign of Gemini. And Gemini is an air sign. And Gemini is also a mutable sign, suggesting that there's a lot of movement and changes that takes place. Where? In the third house. What's in the third house if we were to go in? The third house represents your immediate environment, things that are close in proximity to you, such as your siblings, your aunts, your uncles, your cousins, people from your neighborhood and community. Let's talk about your community. How is the environment? What does that reality look like? Do you live in a urban area or a suburban area? How are the roads? What kind of stores are available to you? How close is the nearest market? What about the pharmacy? All of this has to do with the third house. The third house has to do with what you hear me say, familiar spirits and familiar places. This is all the third house. And those things you constantly are moving through. You're changing different things. Well, you might be at home. One minute you might be at the neighbor's house, the next you may have to go to the pharmacy, the next then to the market, then you might be back home, and who drops by? A cousin, and so it's constantly mutating or changing in some way. That is to say also that your reality is consistently changing. Hello, how are you? You're absolutely welcome, Queen. Here you go, Queen. I call you Queen Pink. How you doing? And so we're talking about the astrological houses, so that we are on the same page whenever I'm teaching or talking about something or we're having a discussion. And we just basic today, just I'm just offering some basic information to make sure that we're always on the same page. So far, we've talked about this very first house here, and we've talked about how in this particular chart, the chart moves clockwise around 1 through 12. The first house is occupied or governed by Aries, and then second house is Taurus, third house Gemini. Now we're moving on to the fourth house. And the fourth house is occupied, or the proprietor is the sign of Cancer. Cancer is a water sign. And we know whenever we talk about water, we are talking about one's inner emotional state. We're talking about, again, emotions, and we're borderlining on entering into the psyche or the spiritual realm whenever we talk about water. Now, Cancer is also a is a cardinal sign. Cancer is a cardinal sign, meaning what? It's initiating, it's starting, it's beginning to do what? If we were to knock on the door and go in the fourth house, what would we see in the fourth house? Home, mom, ancestors, lineage. Think about they used to have these things called photo albums. Opening up a photo album book that holds all the memories that are associated with your family and your upbringing. Your upbringing. I can say that about the third house. The third house, it represents part of your upbringing, building that story. Now back to the fourth house. We're in the fourth house. We can talk about, I forgot. But okay. What did I forget? I might as well share it now. Let's go back to the second house. We're talking about food. Because those are things that we want, need, desire. They enrich our lives. It makes it feel really good. Now I go back to the fourth house. The fourth house of Cancer. Why did I feel the need to go back to the second house? It's because I talked about food. Who cooks it? Usually you cook it at home. Mom, grandma, recipes, family, lineage. These are people, I'll say, or even the home itself is a place where you find comfort. Not just physical comfort in the body, because you might have a nice warm bed to sleep in, or a very comfortable couch where you can become a couch potato, but mom, grandma, family, they have the potential to offer you the emotional support you need. And how does one gain emotional support? Is it when they know that there's someone that can listen to them, someone that they can lay their head on their shoulder, someone that's going to cook you a hot meal to make sure you're okay? Do you get emotionally support knowing that when you go out to this big old crazy world, that if you fail or for any other reason, you can always come home. You can always come home. And there's a comforter there. There's someone that cares, that will feed you, that will nourish you. They'll give you a little milk, some food. They can rock you. They can counsel you. All of that is found in the fourth house. As I mentioned, when it comes to astrology, there are some complications. What are the complications? Is that we each have different life experiences. Some people, when they go into their own fourth house, they don't find that emotional support. They may not have mom, or mom may have passed away early on. They may not have grandmother, or there may be some type of abuse. It's just some type of deficiency relative to one getting the emotional support they need. Where others, when they go into their fourth house, they know they're going home for a barbecue dinner and a nice warm and comfortable bed. It just depends how you, as a unique individual, are relating to this physical world. As mentioned early on, I was trying to save space with this application. So I didn't number all of the houses. However, the houses continue to move. It was this way. In chronological is the word, order, clockwise. And so we started with the first house, moved to the second, third up in this corner, then fourth, the house of Cancer we just did. Now we're moving down to this particular house, and this would be considered the fifth house. Let me stop for a minute. Have you figured out what chart I'm working with? I'm working with moving screens. This example chart, this blue chart in the upper left corner, I do believe is upper left corner on your screen, is the South Indian format. That's what I'm working with. But we know that all of these charts are the same. They're just arranged. The format is different. But we're working with the blue chart. Ugh, I meant to put that mouse there. I'm not going to try to add nothing else. I'm going to let it go. And I'm going to come back to see y'all. If the thing will allow me to. Okay. I'm going to come back. I'm not going to add nothing else and cause the system to go haywire. So we're on this house, the fifth house. The fifth house is the house of Leo. So the super or the proprietor of this house is Leo. Leo is a fire sign like Aries. It's a fire sign. And it is a fixed sign, meaning it is well established. So what's well established? Well, if we were to knock on a door of the fifth house and Leo was to come open the door, what would we see? We will see things that one has created. It could be anything from children, just any creative project that a individual, put their vital life force energy into. When we talk about fire, we're talking about the fire within, your vital life force energy. You use it in the fifth house to create things such as children. You could create love, passionate type of love. You could truly fall in love. You can put your energy there. So in the fifth house, we have all of these things that we create in our lives. Sometimes we create from our ego. Ego is also synonymous with Leo. And remember, Leo is the proprietor or the super of the fifth house. So one's fabulous self-expression can be based or result of the state of their ego, where your ego is, where your level of esteem, personal esteem is, or your level of confidence is, or your sense of entitlement. What will you create or push or impose into the world? Well, all of that is stored here in the fifth house. Another space that people create from is from their heart space. And that's the green chakra. On a chakra wheel, it's the green chakra from the heart. And let me stop. When it comes to the sign, the zodiac sign Leo, the super of this fifth house, Leo is synonymous with, having the heart of a lion or a warrior. Very big heart, willing to do whatever one can, that's something, in order to safeguard that which is theirs, like your children. Your heart is big as gold, and you do whatever you can to save them and protect them and provide for them, because they are what? Your children, Or an artist creates a beautiful work of art, and it is possibly from their heart, and they will do anything to protect it. And this presentation has to be a particular way, because what? That work of art is an expression of their heart space. So all of those things will be found in this fifth house. That artwork I talk about, those children, All of those things, again, a person can create from either their ego or their heart. But whatever a person creates is shown in their fifth house. I want to talk a little bit more about the fifth house in relationship to, you know, this is somewhat of a complicated world. Some people can express themselves in a way that is, I'll say, favorable, again, like an artist. But other times people push out or impose their will in very negative ways. They have this sense of entitlement. You could belittle, not you, but some people could belittle others or perform some acts that minimize the significance of another. Those kind of works are shown here. If a person, will do those kind of things, it'll be in this house. Moving on to the next house in this corner, right there. That's the sixth house. And that sixth house, right there, is that sixth house is the house of Virgo. So let's talk about, I got a fly in the room, y'all. See, I'm being taunted. I'm in hell. We're going to talk about that one day, too. I'm going to get this fly. I got my whooping fly stick right here. So let's talk about the sixth house of Virgo. Virgo is a mutable sign, meaning it's always changing or mutating in some way. It is an earth sign. Let's see. What else about Virgo? Remember, this is a quick basic lesson. So we're on the same level of awareness as we move forward and do the different things that we do here on my channel. I almost had it, including tarot reading. So, the sixth house, when you hear me talk about the sixth house when I'm reading the tarot cards, I talk about one's day-to-day routine and all that they have to do in order to address the demands of life, of man, and of God. That's what happens in the sixth house. And so that's always changing. There's always something. Every day you get up, you have this whole list, this whole regimen of things that you have to accomplish in a day to keep the day running smoothly. That's shown in the sixth house. The kind of things that you will be called to do in order to try to make your life run smoothly. Everything from, let's talk about routines. Getting up, brushing your teeth, combing your hair, taking a shower, what they call a shit showering and shaving, making breakfasts. That's what you do. It just depends. It's always changing. It's always this list. Every now and then something come up, and when you're supposed to be, I'll say, on your way to work, you end up having to redirect your energy and go somewhere else because the school called for because of the kids, or you had intended to go to space Z and you've been called to space A and it's mandatory. And so you have to change what your plans are sometimes in the sixth house, and that's what makes it so mutable. The sixth house talks about your health. How's your health? What do you do to try to increase your stamina and your longevity? Do you work out? Well, that's shown in the sixth house if a person works out. So what am I saying? I'm saying if we were to knock on the door and that virgin that is synonymous with Virgo comes to the door and we pierced into that house, what would we see? For some, we will see workout equipment because that's a part of their daily regimen and what they do. Others, we would see doing what? Again, some sleep at a particular time because it's the way their schedule is set up. Some people work in the morning. Some people work in the afternoon. Some people work the midnight shifts. So their bedtime is different. And that's shown in the sixth house. The sixth house, again, remember, it talks about health. About how you take care of your health. What will inflict your health. Those kind of things are all shown in the sixth house. What could also be found in that sixth house when we open the door? Pets, dogs, cats. Very domesticated animals could be shown in the sixth house. That's to say, if a person actually has or will have in their lives domesticated animals that they have to care for, or how they will handle their health, or what are some of the health issues a person may have to deal with in the course of their life. What would one have to do from day to day to meet the demands of life, man, and God? What will they have to do is there in the sixth house. So, moving forward now, because we're going to make this short, quick. The next house, boom, after the sixth, is the seventh house. And the seventh house is the house of Libra. And many people like this house. They love this house. Why? Because the seventh house represents entering into contracts with other people or other parties or other entities. It's when we get to be one-on-one with another or others, depending on how the social contract is written up. Now, when I say contract, don't think so professional. There are all type of contracts. There are those professional contracts. They are legal, written contracts that are binding and stamped and sealed and notarized. It is those. But then there is just meeting a person for an appointed time. Those kind of encounters. There are those that we get to know that we end up in relationships with or marry. Then there are others that we just meet, we become friends with. Others, we have this brief moment with a stranger. These are different types of contracts that we form, or I'll say social exchanges that we have with others. Those type of things are shown in the seventh house of Libra. So let's talk about Libra. Libra, if I'm not mistaken, is cardinal. Libra is cardinal as well, meaning it wants to get things started. I want to start a new relationship. I want to start a new partnership. I want to enter into this partnership and see where it's going. I want to enter into this contract to see if what's going to happen. And so it's cardinal. It's initiating. Libra is an air sign, therefore it's very social. It's a lot of communication and information exchanges that take place in this house. I talked about, okay, Libra is air, cardinal, and if we were to knock on the door and Libra was of the scales, were to toot and the door were to open and we would look inside, what might we see? We might see actual written contracts, physical written contract. We may see a mother and daughter team. We may see a husband and wife team. We may see actually some type of legal litigation going on in the seventh house of Libra. And Libra has a symbol or glyph that is associated with it, and it is the scales. It's the scales. And so let's talk about the scales a little bit, because we're still talking about what would we find in this house if we were to pierce in. The scales represents trying to maintain this balance. In reality, trying to maintain a balance in what? In partnerships and in social exchanges. So in this house, we are guaranteed, in this particular house, we are guaranteed to find scales. Can we balance this interaction? Can we have a fair exchange where no one is robbed? Those are the kinds of things that we will find in a person's seventh house in astrology. Moving forward, the next house, here I go, right here, would be the eighth house. The eighth house is occupied by Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is a water sign. And remember, when we're dealing with water, we're dealing with the emotions that end up having a direct impact upon our psyche. And it also has to do with the spirit, or the state, or the development of the spirit and soul. And so Scorpio starts going real deep. See, in Cancer, it was more, I'll say, surface. The surface. It's like the workings. It's the workings to where the soul will end up being. We ain't got that yet. Got here yet. To that house in the corner, 12th house. We ain't got that yet. But it starts here with the 4th house. Where you loved, where you cared for, where you nurtured, where you, how do you feel about that? Those kind of things. Were you comfortable? Did you feel secure? Did you have emotional support? Those are the kind of things we find in the fourth house. And it is ultimately revealed in the 12th house. But we're not there yet. Right now, we're here dealing with the eighth house of Scorpio. This is when it really starts showing up in the world. Now, as mentioned, the eighth house is occupied, ruled by, or supervised, I'll say attended by Scorpio. Now, Scorpio is a water sign, as mentioned, and it is fixed, it's set, it's etched in stone. It's hard to change once something happens in a fixed, with a fixed sign. So what do we find in Scorpio? We find a person's emotional depth. Are they wounded, or are they capable still of loving and being compassionate? If we were to knock on this eighth house door right here, and that little creepy scorpion were to open the door, what would we see? We could see people in one corner that, even though in a group of people, are in a corner, it's dark, and they're balled up in a corner and they're kind of whimpering and crying. We can see that. Or we can see a person that has, you can see the branches or the tree of abuse on their back, but yet they're kneeling over and trying to offer some emotional support to another because they are overcomers. And that's Chiron, the wounded healer kind of energy. In that same house, we may see two people that got together in the seventh house that worked things out. And we can find that even exchange with no robbery taking place in the eighth house. These people are an example of how they have both developed on an individual level to the point that they can have a fair exchange here in the eighth house. In the eighth house, if we walked in, we could find somebody's debts. We could find what's they call like Trans World Union, the credit keepers. We could find them there. We could find folks' credit cards here in the eighth house. All the credit cards that be in a person's wallet, we can find all that. We can find bankruptcies and things like that. Because the eighth house really represents another's response to our emotional demands. It says, when a person fills out an application, it says, can I get this credit card? And that bank accepts them. Eighth house, that's the bank's response. Yes, sure, you can get this, this line of credit, sure. And so, well, that's going deep, but I want to go to deep. It's basic. What else does the eighth house have to do with? Ooh, it's a basement in the eighth house. And in that basement are secrets, many, many secrets for some. It depends. Life is complicated. It depends on how an individual is relating to this world. In the eighth house, in that basement, sometimes we find some spirits that are beginning to manifest or develop. We can find sexual deviancy, the 50 Shades of Grey, in this basement. We can find the occult, hidden secrets to various things, including our physical world at large, as well as our own personal experiences. In the eighth house, we find that the secrets are hidden to if a person is sexually abused or abused in any way. We find the answers or the potential for such things in the eighth house. What else? We find in the eighth house, we find out possibly hidden ailments that may need surgery. Because the eighth house represents things that are hidden that can be uncovered if one digs deep. So we're talking about in the eighth house, it has to do with one's sexuality, because sometimes we have to dig to find out what our fetishes are, if we have them. That's also found here in the eighth house, if we have them or not. Or if someone that we are involved with shares in our fetishes are found in the eighth house. What else does the eighth house cover that I can think of? Oh, but let me talk a little bit more about this water sign of Scorpio that occupies the eighth house. Remember all of these things that take place in the eighth house. Whether a person gets that line of credit, whether they keep their darkest hidden secrets or mysteries hidden in the basement, All of these things, if the surgeries or possibly some form of mental health developing, those kind of things, are things that can have a tremendous impact upon a person's emotional state, and therefore what, their psyche. Psyche. And I can't help myself, because if you get your butt in debt messing around in the 8th house, when it's time to pay the piper, or when it's time to pay them bills back, oh, that can give you a lot of emotional discomfort and instability and many nights of crying. If it keeps going on and it affects your has a negative effect on your lifestyle, then guess what? It really can affect you on a deep emotional and psychological level. Including, when I say including, I'm talking about things that can really have an impact on your psyche and therefore your soul. Things such as abuse. I'm going to let the 8th house go. And let me see which way I go. Right? How I get there. This house, where it go? Down here. Hey, yeah, right there. The 9th house. This is the 9th house. Now, the 9th house is the house of Sagittarius. Or Sagittarius is the proprietor or the tenant, superintendent to that house. 9th house. So, Sagittarius is a fire sign. It is a mutable sign, if I'm not mistaken. Mutable fire. Sagittarius. Now, what is Sagittarius about? Sagittarius, if we were to knock on the door, and Sagittarius, that's the half man, half horse, comes to the door, and we were to pierce into this house, what would we find? We will find a person's highest level of education. We will find all of their world travels, including their passports and things like that, and all those kind of photos and things. And we will find things that have to do with different types of cultures and doctrines and all kind of things. We may even find a library in there, like the Library of Alexandria. So much information acquired in life has a direct impact upon a person's level of awareness. How aware are you? What have you learned? What have you unearthed or discovered in the course of your lifetime? How knowledgeable are you? Now, the reason why this is a fire sign, number one, you got to use your vital life force energy to have life experiences in order to gather this information that's in the 9th house, or this awareness that the 9th house permits. Something I failed to do in all the rest of the houses, but I'm not going to go back, is to talk about its ruler. Here in the 9th house, Sagittarius is ruled by Jupiter. And what does Jupiter talk about? Well, Jupiter is known as the great expander, or to cause expansion. Life experiences lead to expansion. Life experiences lead to growth in different type of ways. But right now, we're talking about a person developing an awareness in life. The more you know, or the more aware you are, I would say, the more life experiences you have, the more aware you are, the more you grow. Now, how can I say this? Because again, life is complicated. It depends on what a person, who a person is and what they've experienced in their life. Some people are, I'll say, exposed to false information. That can be revealed in the 9th house if a person receives false information under false prophets or false teaching, or if they were miseducated. That would be revealed in the course of their lives. But it also, this 9th house also reveals, when a person is appropriately educated, and how appropriate education and the expansion of it can be a blessing to a person. Because you know the answer. You know what to do. You know how to exert your vital life force energy if you have the right information. That's present in the 9th house. The 9th house also represents travels, like going overseas. What they call them, exchange students and things like that. Why? because going those distances to foreign countries and places and experiencing different cultures again broadens your horizon. You realize that what you may have learned early in life, your preliminary years, may not be the all in all. You expand your horizon through journeys, or they're extensive journeys, but they're temporary journeys in the ninth house. Now, the ninth house, excuse me, the ninth house also holds all of those teachers that you have. The gurus that you may sit up under, the professors that you have at your university or colleges, and those people that are responsible for teaching you what you come to know in life. It also has to do with religion. Religion. As religion is a doctrine, is teaching you something. So what am I saying? I'm saying that we were to knock on the door, and Sagittarius came to open the door, what we would see, possibly stacks of books, people from different cultures and races, countries, races, cultures, speaking to each other, exchanging, talking about their traditions, their rituals. It has to do with again, the teachers and the gurus and the philosophers and the different world travels. We might see different parts of the world, and what takes place in those areas. We would see all different types of religions in the ninth house. I forgot how many religions there are. I've quoted it here on my YouTube channel before. Let's say, hypothetically, possible there are 1,600, I don't know, religions worldwide. Well, we will find those religions or doctrines that a person has been exposed to, or is expected to be exposed to in the course of their life, in the ninth house, in that person's chart. In the ninth house, that's where you find it. So if a person, hypothetically case scenario, were to be up under a particular religion, whether Jehovah's Witness, Christianity, whatever, I don't know, name some, it would be revealed one way or another in their ninth house. If a person was to have minimal exposure to life and the abundance of life, and would lack in the opportunity to expand through life experience, that would be shown in their ninth house. Now nope, it's this way. Let me see. I'm going to have to use this hand. Right there. That worked. Now on to the next house, which is the 10th house. The 10th house is occupied by the zodiac sign Capricorn. Now, the 10th house in Capricorn is earth energy. It is a cardinal sign, and earth cardinal. So what does that mean? Well, if we were, let me say it like this. If we were to knock on the door of the 10th house, and the Capricorn, that, what is it, centaur? Another, let's say, mutated kind of beast, half man and half sea goat. Man, goat, and sea goat. If that creature was to come open the door and we pierced into the 10th house, what would we see? We would see the result, I'll say, of a person's ambition. What do you want to achieve in life? What are your goals? Those kind of things. It would have to do with a person's career. If they're a doctor, there. If they're a nurse, there. If they're a daycare provider, there. If they're a bum, there. That's their career. That's their greatest ambition. Be there in the 10th house. It also has to do with their level of popularity, found there, reputation, or social status. How do you fit into society? What's the role that you're playing? Are you a very popular person with a lot of influence, or are you affluent? All of that will be shown in the 10th house of Capricorn. Why is it cardinal or initiating? Because one initiates or begins to move forth in a career. Now, there's a difference. I'll say it like this. There's a difference between a job and a career. A job, you just go to work to make some bread, to try to, meet the demands of life. But with a career, it's constantly a consistent, steady climb, like the mountain goat associated with Capricorn, a consistent, steady, intentional climb to the mountain top or that career. So it's more than about the money. It is about the accomplishment. It is about being able to master oneself or a particular area of interest or focus. It's to be known and admired for your work. Why? Because you have moved to become proficient and to be a master in a particular place or a position in life. And if nothing fails, then one would receive what? Praise, accolades, and different things like that. Social standing, you'll be called to give lectures. Why? Because you're an expert. People will refer your name and your work. Why? Because you were an expert. And that's what the 10th house represents. Always climbing or keeping it moving, getting something started, the next phase. It never ends. When you're a career builder, it does not end. You just build one upon the other, one accomplishment upon the other. And then say you reach the height of a particular goal, then there are interdisciplinary, I think I'm saying it right, fields that one begins to build upon as well. It's never ending. It's consistently being reignited and restarted and built upon when it comes to the 10th house of Capricorn, which is earth sign. And earth sign represents, and 10th house also has to do with manifestation, manifesting in this physical world, doing what one must to manifest what one needs in their life, as far as building houses and cars. Remember, the 10th house, whenever you hear me talk about like the 10th house energy, is about working to build, sustain, or manifest something in this physical world that will support your physical security. In some places, it depends on what you're talking about in this chart. Sometimes one is trying to build, sustain, or manifest or tend to their emotional worldly needs and wants. They need to be loved. They need to be cared for. They need to belong. They need to connect. And other times, it's about one working to build or sustain their physical needs in this physical world. They need a house. They need a car. They need some water. They need some clothes. So right there, we have at least two things going on. And these things that I was just saying that we have going on, we just talked about two of them. When it all boils down to it, we're talking about when we're dealing with these astrological houses, we're talking about, how can I say, trying to move forth in this physical world in this very low vibrational energy, the lower nature. This is all really root chakra based, meaning the lower nature, the instinct, the need to survive. Now, while we're doing that, we're also trying to tend to the state and the development of our souls. So, we just finished, I gotta use this hand, with the 10th house. Now, we got two houses left. We have this house, which is the 11th house of Aquarius. And in this upper corner, however I can get it, I don't know, right there, in that corner. The 12th house of Pisces is the final house. Once I've completed this 12th house of Pisces, the final house, that will end this live stream. And I do thank you for dropping by here to Can Angels Fly Tarot and studying some basic information associated with astrology. And that is the houses and the corresponding zodiac signs. And some details associated with each house and zodiac sign. I do ask you to like, share, and if you haven't already subscribed to my channel, if you're ever interested in ordering your own personal tarot reading with me, all you got to do is contact me at my email. My email is canangelsfly1@gmail.com. And if you're ever interested in submitting a love offering, that is to say a financial offering to me, just look below any video I make. All the details are that you need, or the link that you need to my PayPal me account is below every video, including this one. Thank you. Okay, let's finish up. The 11th house is governed by, or occupied by, or supervised by Aquarius. And Aquarius is a air sign, meaning it's about communications, it's about social exchanges, it's about the flow of information and knowledge. And Aquarius is also a fixed sign, meaning, it's like when you learn what you learn, you know it. That kind of thing is established, it's ingrained. Let's talk about, I talk about Aquarius as air and fixed. So, what does that mean? And it's masculine. Okay. So, if we were to knock on a door, and Aquarius, the water bearer, was to come to the door, and we pierced into its house, their house, what might we see? We may see, possibly, all of the social issues that humanity has had to deal with. The 11th house does correspond with humanity. All the individuals in the world that create humanity. And it focuses, in this house, if we were to look into it, focuses on your contribution into the state of humanity. What have you contributed into humanity? I'm going to give you an example. Have you been littering? Is that where you're contributing into reality? Have you, I don't want to throw a particular career field out there, so I'm going to digress from that. What else can I share? My question is, in the 11th house, what have you contributed? What have you contributed into your own intimate world that ultimately will have a butterfly effect upon all of this physical existence? What have you contributed? The 11th house also talks about, what are you involved with? What special interest groups are you associated with? What is that group's purpose? What is its contribution into the world at large? Such groups or associations or allies can be churches and the members. It can be political parties. It can be your friendship circle, your large friendship circle. It can be, let's see, name a group. I don't know. Various types of groups out here. It could be any type of group or social organization in which information is exchanged or flows, or, 11th house also talks about associating with others, networking in order to, again, have exchanges so that you yourself can move forward in this life. You can move forward. And when I say that, I mean literally networking, people giving you referrals and references and things like that. 11th house has this association with the future. What's the future of humanity? What's the future of your life? Those kind of things, because you do what you do and you interact with whom you interact with. What else the 11th house has to do? It also has a direct link through the Uranian energy, what it's ruled by, is directly related to electricity and technology and things like that. Again, the question in closing down the 11th house is, what have you contributed or will contribute into this world through your life? And the final house is the 12th house, and that's how I do it. Yeah, I did it right here. The final house is the 12th house, and this house is supered by the zodiac sign of Pisces. The two fish. One swimming one way, the other swimming the other way. Oh, I forgot to talk about, I be thinking of stuff as I move forward. So let's talk about the 12th house. The 12th house is occupied or governed by, or supered by the sign of Pisces. Pisces is a water sign, and you know, whenever we talk about water, we talk about one's emotional state to the point it has an impact upon the psyche and then the soul, the state of the soul. Pisces is a mutable sign, meaning it's always moving and changing. So if we were to knock on that 12th house door and those double fish were to come open the door, the sign of Pisces was to come open the door, and we pierced in what we see, we could see the final outcome of all the houses, all the houses before it, the result, the overall effect or influence or impact. Will a person go to prison? Will they go to jail as a direct result of the rest? How I go? Nope, this way. The rest of their life existence. What is the accumulative result? Will they perish as a result of this experience or this time period? Will they have they developed psychic abilities? I have a video out here about developing psychic abilities. As a direct result, a unique life experience will one develop, psychic abilities. In the 12th house, we would find those results. Oh yeah, they develop psychic abilities. Oh, they may have, excuse me, decided they can't live on and committed, in the 12th house. They may have, as a direct result, talking about socially and globally, they may have went to war. They may have, it depends on who it is and how one is relating to this physical world. 12th house, the final results, the final outcomes, examples are the person may dream or practice escapism, such as the use of drugs and alcohol. A person could be end up sexually perverted, or the opposite, totally sexually shut down and unwilling to participate in such things. 12th house. The 12th house talks about the subconscious, the impact all one's life experiences has had upon their psyche. Some people are psychologically effed up, and other people are psychologically more stable. We know this, and it is shown in one's 12th house, the potential about what can occur in their lives. I'm still trying to think of other things the 12th house has to do with. Imagination. It has to do with magic. It has to do with the opportunity to transform, to change. Let me try to clarify what I mean. There's a thin line. Let me see if I can use this finger. Right here. Between the 12th house, where is that? The 12th house and this first house. To my 12th, first. It's that thin line right here between the houses. And right there is potential. Either one will move forward from where they find themselves in the 12th house. If a person finds themselves depressed, then they will continue to move forward through life, having the life experiences that they are scheduled to have with depression riding their back. Or if a person finds themselves, when it comes to the 12th house, incarcerated, they will continue to move forward and have the scheduled life experiences that they are scheduled to have incarcerated. But it's also that line between the 12th and the first house is also a line of possibility. It's a line of hope at all times, because you can learn during this new phase or new season that you or another is entering into, even if they enter it in depressed. You may enter it depressed, but you ain't got to come end it depressed. You may enter it or start it in depression, but you don't have to end it in depression. You may start it incarcerated, but you don't have to end it incarcerated. I'm talking about incarceration. Some people get sentences for life, but before they was usually sentenced to be incarcerated for, I'll say, a lifetime, they were already incarcerated or held captive mentally and spiritually. So what am I talking about? I'm talking about, example, this is just a case scenario. a person and caught a life sentence. When they, it's possible that when they first got sentenced to that life sentence, that they, before they were physically incarcerated or held captive, they were already mentally and spiritually captive or incarcerated. But as they move forward and have that scheduled life experience that is associated with being incarcerated, bound or limited, they still continue to have their various life experiences, very unique. And in that time frame, they can change. They can free their mind. They can free their soul, even if their physical body ain't going to be free, and will be incarcerated for the rest of their natural life. But even though they started incarcerated, they won't end up incarcerated, because they are mentally and spiritually free. Just offering an example. Now, I wanted to talk about the 12th house and the transition between the 12th and the first house, that thin line. That thin line is called the ascendant line. This is the ascension. Ascension. This is the in astrology. In astrology, it is considered this ascendant line is considered, or is, the planetary body that is just coming up over the horizon in the morning, just starting, and that's the beginning. It's the potential. You can make a change. That right there is predetermined life experiences. Meaning there are some life experiences one is anticipated to have because of the past experiences, past life experiences. But at the same time, that ascendant line is also the opportunity for change. There's something I was trying to go, as I tried to explain when I was talking about an incarcerated person. But I wanted to get another concept across relative to that transition, between the 12th and the first house. It is almost like in the church, they talked about how you can be baptized, or you can repent and change your ways and those kind of things. That ascendant line right there between the 12th and the first house is what they're talking about. That's the place of repentance. That is the place for change. And it is, again, very hopeful if you actually know what you're dealing with. I hope I did this live stream justice. I thank you for coming by here again to Can Angels Fly Tarot and riding the wave with me. Until next time, y'all. Bye.